Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today I have Jordan and Bryan Boorstein back on the podcast. Jordan Lips and Bryan Boorstein, they don't have the same last name. I was just looking, we chatted, I think sometime in June. So summertime, the last time now it's getting cold. So welcome back on the pod, guys. I'll always love doing these roundtables with you guys. And just, I think you guys we all have a good dynamic. And so it's fun to just chat about training and whatever comes up. But how are you guys doing?
Yeah, these are the best, dude. These are always fun. So yeah, doing great over here.
Agreed. Same. Things are good. All good.
Like I told you, always have the topics, but then when we come in and especially with three people chatting, who knows where it ends up. So I think that's the fun part with it. Jordan, I think since last time we talked, you moved, didn't you? Since the last time?
Yeah, if it was July, yeah, I moved back into Jersey. So back to some cooler weather. Life is good. All things good here for sure.
How's that going from the running standpoint? I bet it's a little bit better.
Oh, it's definitely better. Yeah, it's definitely better. I run hot, not run like running, but run like my machinery is always hot. If it's 60, I start getting, if it's like, all right, that's maybe a little bit, 60's nice. But if it's 70 out, I'm definitely like, maybe I'll stay on the treadmill today. Like I get super duper hot, sweat like absolute crazy. If it's humid, my RPE goes through the roof. So I would prefer, I don't mind running into the winter, provided like it's safe from like a slipping perspective. I will very much look forward to running into the cold months. Yeah, in that regard, awesome. It's been good.
I know last time we chatted too, we talked about heat training and stuff like that. And because it was the summertime, so we were talking about how hot it was. I know again, like I can for sure, like I can already tell even here with it getting into like 50s, 60s, dude, it makes such a difference in terms of when I do my cardio outside, but then also even the weight training, man. It's crazy how much more you can like put into it there and you don't feel fatigue as quickly there.
Yeah, agreed.
Jordan, just to continue to talk about your training, what you've been up to, what are you working on anything specifically right now, or where are you at with your training?
I got a marathon on Sunday, so that's my main focus training wise. My lifting hasn't changed, and I'll lift tomorrow pretty normally. I probably will either not train any legs or I'll just do a deload version of those exercises. I think I have hip extension, leg extension, calf raise or something. So I might go through the motions for the sake of just getting some blood in those muscles and keeping to my somewhat normal schedule, but I certainly won't be training those things super close to failure. But other than that, just gearing up for a marathon on Sunday. Training's been pretty similar, 3 days cardio. Bryan and I think are on a similar schedule, every other day lift and cardio. And yeah, that's been how it's been for a bit of time with a bit of a marathon focus here.
Is this your first marathon?
Yeah,
Because you did a half before, right?
sure. Yep.
What's been the biggest difference in terms of training? Has there been anything that's been different for you? And
Yeah, so I think this goes for any time that you are perform like a performance sport. So something that's not, I almost like the reason I said it that way is because hypertrophy doesn't feel like a performance sport. Obviously, bodybuilding could be the version of that, but the specificity of performing on the day has always been fascinating. Most of us think about training for an adaptation that we want. It's like when we're designing a lifting program, it's designed to maximize the time our client has and the goals that they have. And same thing with running. It's, hey, design a good program that improves my running performance and cardiovascular health. But when you have a goal like running a marathon, it's I want to get a ton of good adaptations to maximize my physiology for the marathon. But then there's all the non-physiology related specificity components. That sounds like a mouthful. What I mean is, what do you do for my goal will be in the ballpark of 4 hours, probably north of 4 hours. What do you do for 4 hours? Do you listen to music? How do you stay focused? What's your caffeine and calorie intake? What's your fluid intake like? How do you get all of that on a race? Are you carrying all that with you? Are you going to do aid stations? Do you start getting blisters after several hours? What are your shoes like? What's your joint pain like after several hours being out there? So that's been a fun thing of, hey, like physiologically, we want to get you to a good place, but there's also a lot of like practical specificity things. I'm sure it's similar with powerlifting. It's like, yeah, like we want to get you big and strong, right? We want most of the bulk of your training to get you really big and really strong. But it's like tapering that week of nutrition, the specific warm up for that single rep you're going for. There's a lot of those, I'll call them race day dynamics, but they're just performance dynamics depending on what the modality is that I've found quite interesting beyond just get better at running, which of course has been fun too.
kind of the things you don't even think about until you actually start doing it. So yeah, that actually does make a huge difference. Like you said, even the blister, I know for me, that's something that that would probably be a huge thing that I didn't even think about, right? Like I feel like my skin's super sensitive and I tend to get blisters like that. So I can see that being something there. And that's a pain in the ass once you get any sort of blister like that. That's definitely going to impact your ability to push through and everything. As far as like your training, you're doing a little bit of a taper now and stuff like that? Is that just like from an intensity standpoint, volume standpoint, or both? Because I'm always curious to hear what that, because I feel like there's different rationales on why you would do one or the other when it comes to endurance training. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fairly analogous to how I think about a deload for training is that if you're looking at levers of volume and intensity, we tend to turn down the intensity dial less and turn down the volume dial a little bit more, as that tends to give you a greater reduction in fatigue with a smaller reduction in performance. And if I don't run that much, but let's just say for ballpark, I was running like 25 miles, like we might bring that total mileage down. But within each workout, we're definitely still having some speed work in there to keep that intensity there and my body acclimated to running at those paces. And then this race week is, again, similar to the specificity discussion, is like the only thing I need to do right now is get really familiar with the pace I'm trying to hit. And of course, that's not something I just started doing this week, but that's the only thing I could even gain this week, is a further acclimation to, oh, I want to run at a 9:10 to 9:15 pace. Let's just do a bunch of short repeats that don't tire you out at that pace, just to familiarize yourself with it as much as possible. So I'm definitely doing very little running this week, but all of it is geared around a little bit of that practice.
Coming from someone that I don't do any running, but obviously continuing to acclimate myself more with like cardio and stuff with running, is that because again, like when you use like a machine, you obviously have the actual feedback of what your speed is or what your wattage is and stuff like that. But obviously when you run, you don't have that, other than, I'm assuming, going off like a mile pace or some sort of pace or something like that. But is part of that a feel as well too, of knowing what that feels like in terms of the actual what you're exerting and stuff like that, if that makes sense what I'm trying to say there?
No, definitely. I think you can do that really well with my watch is charging. Your watch is giving you real-time data of how fast you're running. So it's every 3 seconds it updates how fast you're running or what your split is or whatever. So it's certainly not a vibes related thing. I definitely have that data to tell me. Okay. There is definitely also an acclimation to what this sort of thing feels like. So I think that there's definitely something, it's not just, oh, what does it feel like to run at this pace? What does the cadence feel like? It's also, what does it feel like from a distressing perspective? Is it distressing to run at this pace? What's it like? At what point do you start to hit a flow state? One of the things I find hysterical is I'm supposed to run this pace for 26 miles. But if I go out and run it for 3 or 4 straight, it's fucking hard. Yeah. So like that disconnect of what it feels like in training versus what it feels like on race day, with all the race day dynamics, post taper, adrenaline, caffeine, mindset, the crowd, whatever it is. So that's also, hey, understand that. It's one of the things I've really enjoyed about this is the psychology aspect. Because when you're, not to commandeer the conversation here and steal it and just talk about marathon stuff, but marathon pace sucks in training. Like it feels disproportionately hard to the task that you're ultimately gonna have to do, which is running that for 26 miles. So in coaching an athlete, you're almost like, you don't want to spook them. I said to Alex, I was like, I see a lot of other marathon programs that are like, hey, 10, 12, 15, 16 miles at marathon pace. And he's like, yeah, you could do that, but you're going to die. And if doing that and dying is a net negative for your psychology and you get in your own head about it, we have enough data. It's like lifting, same thing with lifting. If you're if I can do 8 reps at 300, there's some algorithm that tells me what my 1 rep max is. And in some ways, I want to know that because I want to get closer to it. But in other ways, I want to trust the algorithm. And I don't want to psych myself out. It's like if you do 97% of your 1RM, it might feel insanely heavy to the point where you don't believe you can do the 100%. So you want to find that sweet spot of exposing yourself to that real world thing while understanding in a state of higher fatigue, in the midst of training, it's going to feel exponentially hard. You don't want to spook your athletes too much. So finding that right dose of specificity that gets your athlete all the things that they want to get without spooking them has been interesting, because I've done an 8 mile at marathon pace and I texted my coach. I was like, there's no way I'm doing this. And that was often the case. Now, I might not do it, so we might be proven right here. But all other algorithmic signs point to me being able to do it. You take every extrapolation of your 5K time, your 10K time, hundreds of hours of running into an algorithm. It says, hey, you can do this. And then I go and do part of that, and I'm like, nah, no way. So I am putting a lot of my faith in the algorithms and saying, hey, like algorithms think you can do this, rather than just trusting my feelings in this regard.
Was that your longest run at marathon pace, the 8 miles?
The longest run was 8 miles, totally. Oh, for sure. Okay. And frankly, if I could go back in time, I wouldn't have done it. I would have. It's such a high fatigue cost. So what you gain is potentially knowledge, and what you lose is it could have been a better workout if I did maybe 3 or 4 by 3 miles at marathon pace with a little break in between. And it's that day like wrecked me, and I could have had a better workout, and it was not demoralizing, but until I've never run a marathon. I've run other races, but it's a little bit different. I'm about to run double the distance I've ever run. It's a big jump. It feels new. And So, that disconnect for me of what it could possibly feel like on race day, I think psychologically I would have done better not with a little bit less exposure to a long
Mm.
period at marathon race pace.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've had another client who demanded that she run an entire marathon before her marathon because she needed to know. And it worked out fine, but it was not a good, that wasn't a good way to spend our fatigue.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Did you do a longer run that was slower?
for sure.
Yeah.
I've done 20 miles a couple of times, mostly slow. One of the really
Yeah.
interesting things about the long run in running is like if you run 20 miles slow, right? Like easy pace, whatever that means. Which by the way, I understand how insane that sounds at face value. 20 miles at easy pace is a
Yeah.
oxymoron most of the time for most people. It was an oxymoron for me years ago before I started. So I don't mean to sound like that's a thing everyone can even do. But just so stay with me on that, is if you run 20 miles easy or you run 20 miles a little harder at marathon pace, let's say, you end up in a very similar place fatigue wise. Because both of them are so far sub threshold, you end up, it's like one of the interesting things about a long run is if you run 16 miles easy and then 2 miles at marathon pace, those 2 miles at marathon pace are probably just as hard as if you ran 16 miles at marathon pace and then 2 miles at marathon pace because you are still sub threshold. You've run the same amount of distance. There's the same ish amount of pounding that's gone into your legs. So you can really flex that a lot with the long run of, hey, let's run a while. The point is, I want you to feel what it feels like to run at this pace while you're fucking tired. And you don't need to do that by running at marathon pace. We just need to go long enough. We need you out there for
Mhm.
I need 2.5 hours in your legs. And then I need to see what you got at marathon pace. That's been an interesting thing that I think a lot of people are obsessing over many miles at marathon pace, where it's like you could go slower and get what you need out of this, which
Yeah.
is some practice tired.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that.
So with trying out you did the 8 miles and it was like felt super hard. Is part of that going to be you? And you may have hit on this already, but part of it's you're just going to be able to push through that a bit more on race day because it's going to be like you said, adrenaline and stuff like that. And obviously, it's a marathon; like it's going to be hard. And obviously, if you want to maintain a certain pace, there it's just going to be hard no matter what. But is that kind of what you're thinking there? Is it's just going to be something that you can push through a little bit and stuff like that? And obviously, you're continuing to train to help build you up to that point as well too.
For sure. If I test your 1 rep max, if you tell me what your 8 rep max is right now, and I plug it into a calculator and it tells me your 1 rep max, and you go lift that, and maybe you can't lift it at all, or I say what your 2 rep max is, and I make you do 1 rep with that, and you're like, oh, I could never do two. You don't know what it. That's probably not true. I know it's not perfect, but it's probably not true with a good taper and again the right caffeine and the right environment and the right bit of specificity for 6 weeks to gear you up for that. It's almost like if you put your 8 rep max in, it's going to spit out what your 1 rep max potential is, maybe not what your 1 rep max is today. And it's almost like what your 1 rep max would be if you trained for that for even just a couple of weeks to gear your physiology towards that task.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Cool. Well, I do want to come back to your training of it, but I also want to get what Brian's been doing as well too. Yeah, man. I think we chatted a couple months ago, but any updates on your training? Anything specific you're working on right now, or anything like that?
Still sticking with the kind of alternating day sessions, alternating cardio and lifting. It's going great. Alternating upper lower when I do lift. I will say I'm probably getting 3 lifting sessions in over 8 days. So I'm taking a little bit more, like I would say at least once a week, there's like a 2 day period where I just cardio both days and then I'll lift again. Usually that's before a leg day, just because I like to put leg days off. And so that's going great. Deadlifting is continuing to progress. That's been my like main performance focus is the conventional deadlift. Still alternating a heavy week with a light week, which seems to be going great. My midline seems to be getting a little bit stronger, which is always my weakest point when I deadlift. My break down my midline. And switching now to a bit more running as the weather has begun to cool. So that was interesting listening to Jordan talk about running. Last winter, I went to 3 times a week running, one rowing, or I'd throw a bike in if the weather allowed. But usually it was 3 runs and one row last winter, and that's probably what I'll end up doing again this winter once it becomes impossible to bike. And I guess the only other like major update for me is that I've been flirting with this idea of starting super low dose TRT, and I'm finalizing my process and probably going to end up starting that in December or January.
Nice. What's just based off feel? You just want to test it out. It's one of those things. I guess you can't really necessarily test it out per se.
You've always had relatively low within normal but low
Yeah,
testosterone.
so since 2013, when I got my first T-test, I've been between 300 and 350 pretty much every single time that I've done it for the last 12 years.
What was your free test?
It's been between like 6.5 and 7.5 most of the time.
I'm pulling up my blood work from last year. I just totally forgot what mine was, I think. Just for conversational purposes, because I
Yeah.
don't just even put it in the free test in context. I was looking for my ApoB from last time. Yeah, free was 13.1 and regular just normal test was total test was 500, which
Yeah,
is
it's great. You're right in the middle.
the
Yeah.
highest it's ever been for me. So I was
Cool. Yeah, why was the question? I only know me as me, and I know that's obvious, but when you think about it in the context of like how one could feel versus how they do feel, I've always felt like I had sufficient energy and focus and get up and go, or call it dopamine or whatever you want to say. And over the last like 6 to 12 months, possibly in happening at the same time as kind of some of my rumination on my future and what I'm going to do with my life as a 45-year-old. Sounds so ridiculous to say, 43-year-old. But all of that happening has made me question whether maybe I could feel better. Maybe I could have more energy. Maybe I could have more base level dopamine production. And I just think I'm at a point where I'm willing to give it a shot and just see what happens.
And that's something too, where if you decided, hey, I'm going to do a little bit, it's like you need to stick with that like long term as well too,
Oh
right?
yeah, I mean it's probably a lifetime commitment. It would take about 6 to 12 months to return natural productions if I did stop. I asked my doctor about what would happen if I just waded my feet in and tried for 3 or 4 weeks and then decided I didn't like it and went off of it. And he said it would still be a number of months before my natural production was able to normalize again after that. So I'm at least in it for I think what will be 6 to 12 months to just I'm willing to take the chance with the understanding that, hey, getting off of it would suck and that there's a risk associated with that too. But yeah, we'll see. I guess I just don't feel like I was holding off for many years because I thought that there was like this long shot chance I would end up competing in natural bodybuilding. And I think that ship has just sailed and I don't want to do that anymore. I have zero desire to do it. So I think that it's time to see what happens, see if I can get a little more energy, focus, dopamine, and maybe improve my sleep a little bit too.
what are the potential downsides that are on your mind?
I would feel like I'm probably going to lose my hair because it's already happening. So that's something I've had to accept. I obviously don't want like acne or any of the kind of like gyno stuff, but I think at my intent, which is to take only 50 milligrams twice a week, which is half of what the normal dose is, I think I should be able to avoid most of those problems. I don't really see a downside aside from it not working as well as I expect it to. I think that's really my biggest hindrance is that I do this and then nothing really changes, and then I have 6 to 12 months where I'm actually at a deficit trying to get myself like back to normal. So I would say the likelihood of that occurring, I feel, is quite low simply because my testosterone has been low. And if it gets up to 600, that has to be a net positive. So I'm not like super worried about the risk side of it.
What are you expecting from a training side if things go well? Is there anything specific that you're hoping
The
for there?
only thing I'm really expecting is that I'm going to have to spend a little bit less energy to get myself motivated to train. That's simply that years ago, it was like this amazing opportunity. I get to train. I get to go do this hard bike ride where I get to attack this hill. And now it's, oh, I have to lift that weight. That's really heavy. Or like that hill, that's really gonna hurt. I don't know if I really want to do that. And then I get in it and it's great. Like 20 minutes in, I'm like, oh, this is exactly the way I'm supposed to feel. But I think that I'm supposed to feel that going into it more than I'm currently feeling.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. I haven't got my blood work done. That's something that I absolutely need to get done. Obviously, just from a cardiovascular standpoint, just to check, just from a genetic standpoint. But it's also interesting to hear that stuff. And this was something I wanted to bring up with you guys too. Is from a training perspective and recovery standpoint, man. Since having a kid, like, dude, I just feel that recovery is definitely lower in general. But then I also know that part of it is sleep, right? And so I just want to get your guys' thoughts on this and what you guys typically do, and what that transition was like for you guys when you guys both had your kids. Did you find that you could tell sleep was obviously right off the bat, it's going to be impacting the baby being up and everything like that? But was that something that you noticed, and how did you guys deal with that? Was there anything specific that you worked on? Just because, so for example, so you want to get some free time, so you end up staying a little bit later, and then you also, for me, I want to get up before he gets up, and I also want to get some work done. So I'm also getting up a little bit earlier. So it's now I feel like on both ends it's squeezed a little bit. And then the other night, I'm like, all right, I'm getting to bed by 10. This is freaking awesome. It was actually 9:45, and then 30 minutes later, he's waking up got to go try and put him back to sleep. So it seems like that's the cycle I'm in. Was there anything that was super helpful for you guys with that?
You're gonna take it, Jordan. Go first.
I'll take it. Just lowering expectations. So it became less about crushing my workout and more about doing my workout. And it became less about crushing my runs and more about doing my runs. And so it became more about like more of the I'm doing this for my net health and less I'm can't wait to add that one rep to my lat pull down. And so it's not that like my expectations went to the floor and it was just like I went in and did one set and that was good enough. Like sometimes that sort of motivation or lack thereof came over me, but it was way more about I just need to do this thing. And maybe I modify it in some way, but I certainly for me, I took off the pressure of the performance side of it and more just, hey, grab a stimulus, keep it moving, grab a stimulus, 30-minute run, 25-minute work, just lowering the bar to meet myself where I was at.
Oh, hey, Brian, you're muted.
Thanks. Yeah, you guys are both more in a similar position with your kids than I am. Obviously, I have an 8 and almost 6-year-old, and you guys are what, in the 1 to 2 range, in the one range, one sub one, Jeff?
What? Just over one.
Just over one. Yeah, yeah. So you guys are like still in it. Are your kids sleeping like through the night, 12 hours?
For the most part.
Yeah, that's amazing. Once that happens, life's good, right? If you get 5 or 6 of those a week, that's all you can really ask for. And then they probably are still napping at some point once or twice throughout the day. So use those times effectively too, of course. But yeah, I think, man, I almost can't even think back to it being that bad. When you talk about the baby sleeping 12 hours through the night, when I remember when we got to that point, it felt like life really normalized. I didn't feel like I was having to pull teeth and wake up in the middle of the night so much or having my own routine affected. In some ways, it's almost worse now because my son, who's 8, won't go to bed until 9 o'clock.
Hmm.
And Kim and I, our bedtime is usually 9 or 9:30. So that means that the moment we get him down, we're just like in bed going to sleep. And then I wake up at 5:30 so that I can have an hour of time before the kids get up and then they're up at 6:45 or 7 for school. So it feels like now that they're not sleeping 12 hours through the night, I feel like it's almost more limiting for me. But I'm still like it is what it is. You make the best of the situation. You sleep as much as you can. You get as much personal time in as you can. We use melatonin with the kids once a week, and it's like the greatest day. Sunday nights we do it to reset their sleep schedules so that they go to bed early Sunday night and then are on schedule for the week or whatever. And they fall asleep at 7 and 8 respectively on that day. So we get a full hour of our own time at night, which makes Sunday the best day ever. But yeah, I guess you just take them day by day, year by year, and you deal with the problems as they come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our son's a good sleeper. It's just again, it's just you used to just being able to get your 8 hours super easy, and now I just feel like I have to be even more disciplined about it, which sucks. I was just didn't know if you guys struggled with that kind, if you felt like recovery was off.
I've woken up probably twice a night since college. I can't remember sleeping through the night anytime really much post college. So I think for me, it really wasn't that big of a deal. Like even having sleep interrupted was just like normal, like par for the course.
Yeah, I'm with that. I think that there's an adrenaline, there's like months of adrenaline. I'm sure my daughter didn't sleep 12 hours for several months. Eventually she did, but just feel like in those moments I was lowered the bar and adrenaline was high. And the net of that was like I kept doing the things I needed to do, even though but yeah, even it being a year ago or a year and a half ago, I'm remembering myself being very fired up about even with less sleep, getting the things I needed to do done, and also lowering the bar from a training perspective for sure.
Yeah. When's baby number 2 due?
Yeah, a week on my birthday, so in March 28th or so. Yeah,
Around the same time that the first one was born.
yeah, which I gotta say, financially, it's a girl born at the same month. Is sweet because seasonally we have the same clothes. If it's a wrong season, they
Yeah,
grow.
yeah.
So I was like, I just was joking. I was like, we have so many clothes. Jenna's like, yeah, but it's the same season, so they'll all
Yeah.
be perfect for her.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're pumped.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up because I couldn't remember if I thought I like vaguely remember you posting that you're having a second. It crossed my mind. I was like, I think so, but I don't want to say something if you don't know for sure. No, that's awesome, man. Congrats.
Thanks.
It's like you're finally getting used to everything and then now it's going right
Yeah.
back.
Brian was talking about his son going to bed at 9 and like the gap between bedtime and your bedtime. And yeah, so my daughter's just now at the age. Honestly, there's nothing cuter than a procrastinating bedtime. I know that there's some parts of that are not cute, but like my
Right.
daughter will do and act in ways that are like completely out of the norm because she knows that the alternative is going to bed. Like
Yeah.
her bedtime's like 7:30, and like at 7:20, she'll be like, "Oh, we got to play with this toy I've never played with," and she's, "Oh, I got to sit in daddy's lap and read a book," and I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Don't give me this. You know that it's bedtime." She'll rearrange an entire bookshelf full of books at 7:28. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's so cute because she'll go from being crazy tantrums. We're in that place right now where she's like, it's like on a knife's edge. Mostly the best thing ever, but like also she's going ape shit sometimes, to like the sweetest angel child between 7 and 7:30. She knows that bedtime is coming. And Jen and I were just saying sometimes it's like wrestling an alligator to get her to bed. And then I imagine we're gonna put her to bed and turn around, and there's gonna be another baby. And be like, oh shit. Like
Yep.
it is what it is. It's all good.
You guys will split. One of you will take one takes the other, and then she'll ask for you, and the other one will ask for her, and you
Yeah.
have a whole
Nobody
process.
will ask for me. They will ask for mom.
That's totally not true, dude.
Just wait. Yeah, that man, having another that freaking gives me some anxiety for sure.
Crazy.
But it's awesome though too. I know it's awesome. Everything about being a parent, like the cliches are so true. On the topic of sleep, this is something I've noticed too. It's at least for me, the one night of bad sleep, I feel pretty like I feel okay the next day. But if you start to string together a couple days of bad sleep, I that's where I feel like it really starts to add up.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, okay, now I'm like freaking tired. It's like that first day, not a big deal, but then after that, man, it really does start to catch up. And I feel like it's with sleep, there's the like you feel it, like you feel tired, but I feel like it's like a sneaky thing where again, it's like recovery's a little bit lower, motivation's lower, you're just like brain, like you're just a little bit foggier. So it's like more, I feel like subtle type things too. I don't know
Mhm.
if you guys have any experience,
Yeah.
like any.
Totally. And I have found an exponential benefit to power naps. So I'm a good, in some ways, I'm not a good sleeper, but in some ways, I'm a great power napper. I haven't, I wear, I know it's just whatever, just roll with me. I wear an eye mask that has like Bluetooth speakers, which I don't typically use, but for power naps, where I have to go from like my hustle and bustle day to like immediately laying down in bed, putting on like something for me, a story, a not stimulating podcast or whatever, something about sports or whatever, I can be out in 7 minutes, and I can put an alarm for 20 minutes and get something from it. I'm not saying it's like fucking recharges the entire battery, but it's something. Just turn off the lights, put on an eye mask, whatever, and set your alarm for 20 minutes. Even if you stare at the back of the eye mask for 20 minutes, it's still going to help. Whatever Huberman related active rest terminology he would use, or whatever it is, there's some terminology that he would
Yeah,
use.
it's like a certain type of yoga. There's
Non-sleep, like non-sleep deep rest. That's what it
yeah,
is.
yeah, non-sleep deep rest. Yeah.
I find that it is a net positive for the minutes I spend on it. I spend 20 minutes of sleep and I'm like, oh, I could be doing something. I'm gonna give it on the back end of this. It feels good. Go in there, turn the lights off, set an alarm, and then just say, hey, when the alarm goes off, I'm getting up. If I didn't sleep, I didn't sleep. But if you did sleep, you got 2 minutes, you got 2 minutes. And that has been helpful in those moments.
Is that something you do daily or just when you feel like you need it?
Yeah, it's not something I do daily. Definitely not. Usually it's I try and do it when she's asleep, and I usually have calls during that hour. But on the weekends, when I don't have calls, I'll see if I can snag one of those. Yeah.
It almost sounds like it's like a 20 minute like meditation almost in a way. And if you fall asleep a little bit, then you do. And if you don't, like you said, it's not a
Yep.
big deal. I remember I used to do those when I would work in person because you'd have those split shift, right? You like work in the morning and then you'd work super early, then you'd work
Yep.
night. I used to
Yep.
do those, man, in like the 20 minutes. It's counterintuitive, but it really does. It does energize you. You'd think that it wouldn't, but it's like those longer naps when I didn't really understand what was going on. It was like you used to do those like longer naps of 2 hours, and God, you just wake up just feeling just straight, just dog shit after those 2 hours.
Yep. Yep.
Do you ever do any napping or anything like that, Brian?
So I have only napped twice in the last number of years that I can remember, and both of them were after huge nights out partying and not
No.
getting enough sleep. And they just ruined me. Like they were those long naps that just ruin you afterwards. But I will say on the topic of the non-sleep deep rest, or the name that Huberman used to use was yoga nidra. But anyway, it's the same thing. I will, and I think I've talked about this in the course of discussing like meditation or breath work, but almost every day around 1, 2, or 3 p.m. at some point, I will do breath work with my eyes closed for 5 to 10 minutes. And even though I do not fall asleep, I find that it is extremely rejuvenating simply to close my eyes.
Yeah. Anytime I've done that, it's been super helpful. It's making me feel like I probably need to start doing that a bit more.
Yeah.
So with your guys training, doing every other, it sounds like you guys are both fairly similar. And like every other day you do weight training, right? Is that kind of what you guys said? Like one day it's
It,
weight.
yeah, like I was saying, I usually take 3 sessions over 8 days. I think Jordan's more like every other day legit. So he's probably like 3 to 4 sessions depending on the week. I'm like 3 lift sessions over 8 days. I like to do a little bit more cardio in there. That's just where I'm at right now, and that seems to be good with my recovery curve.
In Jordan, yours is again, say it is every other day. pretty much.
Yeah, Mondays are off and every other day otherwise. So 6 days, 3 and 3, and then Mondays are off.
Do you guys break that up to have the different, or is it just the way that you guys have found to best fit into your entire week? Or is there any like physiological reason as to, okay, I'm going to do weight training and then cardio and split them up and give you that rest? Is there any benefit there? Or is it just a way that just fits into your week the best?
I train full body, and that tends to be my preference in case I can't get as many lifts as I'd like to, which literally has never happened. But I say it never happened, but like I chuckle because one of the utilities of full body training is if you happen to only get 2 days in, like you can still get a decent amount of frequency times volume, get a decent stimulus. So I can't train back. I can't. It's not that I can't train back. You can train back days. It's not the best plan if you train full body. So I train every other day, and that's okay. Then what am I going to do with the rest of the day? So I just put cardio in there. And the cardio thing, you could say I don't do enough cardio. Bryan will test this. I don't do enough cardio to warrant a lot of really easy cardio. So most of my cardio days are like what the cardio world would call a workout, which is not just go out and run for some easy miles. Like you're doing some sort of a real workout. And putting those back to back probably also isn't the greatest plan, which again, of course you can do them. You can do them on the same day if you're Norwegian. And again, of course, there are no rules, but it's, hey, I probably don't want to do those things back to back. I probably, if I can help it, not do those things back to back. So thus the every other day was born.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just gonna ask you.
Yeah, I would say mine is probably more just like the way it fits into my week, but I also psychologically enjoy the alternating fashion. What I like about my upper lower, in contrast to Jordan's full body, is that I can go back to back if my schedule dictates that I should do, but I very rarely do. And I really, like I said, psychologically enjoy the alternating fashion of having one where I'm getting my heart rate up doing aerobic work and one where I'm really gritting and having that kind of completely different intense experience. That's been really cool for me. And then I just try to be cognizant of where I put my like long slow stuff versus my harder like workout, as Jordan would say. And I do enough cardio that I think I warrant having some of those long slow days. And I really enjoy them. I'm sure there's like a small fatiguing component to going out for a 2 hour zone two ride, but I find it just so cathartic and it feels very parasympathetic to me that it's just like such a net positive in my life. Like I never finish one of those zone two rides and feel like, oh, that was a terrible idea. I should not have gone out for that really beautiful bike ride through the meadow or whatever.
Yeah, the being out. Anytime I can get like a client to get outside or do anything, it's to me that you're just killing like multiple birds with one stone there when you can get out and do that. And definitely makes it a lot easier. I will say with the cardio though, I feel like there is a little bit of that mental fortitude that comes with it that you build with it. Cause especially on the longer ones, cause man, I remember when Bryan, when I used to do those like longer rides, when you were programming them in there for me, it was like, man, just sitting through it and working through that time and like almost just being bored in a way. Like I feel like that's a skill that you can develop that's underrated with it. Cause like I have a lot of clients that when I do try to program in like the 20-30 minutes cardio, like the thing that usually for them is, oh, it's just so boring. And oh, I want to go do something else, or I want to switch it up all the time and stuff like that. But I'm like, I think part of it, like that is a skill I feel like you can get from that and that you can develop from that.
Yeah, I think that's right, but I also think that I'm not good at that skill, at least when it comes to riding on an indoor trainer. If you put me on a indoor bike like you were doing, or on a row machine or a treadmill or something like that, it will be a very rare occasion to see me doing zone two work on any of those machines. I almost exclusively have to do intervals just to keep myself engaged. But being outside and riding my bike, I much prefer being in zone two than doing intervals because it's just so chill and relaxing and beautiful. And the ability to focus on a podcast as I look around at nature instead of just pedaling monotonously, staring at a screen on the Peloton or something.
Yeah, and that's why I don't do any of the long ride. Like I'm just not doing those anymore because it's one, I don't go back to what you guys were saying. I feel like I don't have enough volume to be able to like warrant, hey, I need to do these super long rides. But with what you just said there too, it gets a bit except when it's 30-40 minutes or longer. It's okay, yeah, it gets crazy. But that's just how I try to like do the cardio too of, hey, I'm also building that skill. But I agree, there's that point where it's like, all right, this is a bit extreme. If you guys don't mind, I just want to bring up my training and just see if you guys would change anything in terms of the setup and stuff like that. So I was doing 3 full body days, and then like on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, I would do some sort of cardio, and then I play hockey on Sunday. But now I switch it to where I'm doing full body on Monday, my interval session on Tuesday, upper pull on Wednesday, upper push on Thursday, but then on that day too, I'm doing like a 20-ish minute zone 3, zone 4 ride where I'm trying to like keep the pace the same throughout the entire time, increasing that. And then Friday legs, and then Saturday again 20 to 30 minutes of the same kind of style, and then hockey on Sunday. Is there anything that like you would be like, why are you doing that? That doesn't make sense? Or because I know
Well,
Brian, you good.
yeah, I commented on your Instagram post and just threw out a suggestion that you move that last leg day a day earlier. And the reason I made that suggestion initially was because in my mind, if you have a full lower body day on Friday, that's a day that's likely going to cause some decent soreness and muscle damage. And even without the intensity of playing hockey on Sunday, I feel like I wouldn't want to then turn around and do a full body workout on Monday where once again I'm training legs. So it seems like between the Friday lower body workout, the hockey, which is leg intensive on Sunday, and then the legs again on Monday, you're consolidating all of your lower body work into a 3 day period. So my thought was just why not move that lower body day one day earlier? Because now the gap is 3 days from the full body day to the lower body day, and you get 4 days from the lower body day back to the full body day again. Plus, you have hockey in there. So that was just my thought on the situation. Regarding the rest of it, I think it's totally great. Like, I don't have any criticisms of any of that.
Does it end up being lower hockey full?
It's lower Friday, the 20, 30 minute zone 3-ish on Saturday, hockey, then full.
I don't disagree with Brian. I think you'll be all right because they're not. If it was lower full, if it was lower hockey full, then yeah, I would organize away from that. But if it's lower off meaning just okay, I'm not poo-pooing your 20, 30 minute zone 3 day. I love that. I love that. I'm just saying it's not fucking you up. So if it's lower than that tempo threshold day, whatever we call it, and then hockey and then full. I agree with Brian's take, but you'll probably survive this way. So if you had some sort of personal preference, I'd go roll with it. But I think Brian makes the only potential adjustment.
That Monday, it's pretty light on legs, right? It's RDL, which obviously is not
Pretty light on legs. Hardest leg thing.
Yeah, RDL. It's 2 sets and then leg extension. So it's not like it's
Yeah. You're not
ton.
squatting. Yeah.
But that Friday one, I definitely do feel some soreness on Saturday. But I came back, and the biggest reason I set it up that way, and so I'd be curious to hear your guys' on thoughts on this, is I want it to work into my entire schedule here because I think in a perfect world, it's like we would separate our lifting from our cardio, right? But for me, it's just not feasible. And I still want to get in a good amount of cardio work. I have that back to back there, right? Where I'm doing that on Thursday, the upper push, and then the cardio right after. And so for me, it made more sense to put that on Thursday. Whereas if I did legs on Thursday and then tried to do that, would be super freaking challenging to do right after. You know what I'm saying? And so that allowed me to split up the cardio as well, too, from Thursday to Saturday.
How is that any different though than doing your cardio the day after legs on Saturday? Like you're still doing cardio the day after legs if you flip the push session and the leg session.
Say that again. Sorry.
So you're saying that you didn't want to put the leg day one earlier because it would be hard to do the push session plus the cardio the day after legs. Is that what you're saying?
It would be hard to do the legs, then the cardio right after, essentially, is what I'm
Well,
saying.
no, why not just do the cardio after the upper body push the next day?
On Friday?
Yeah.
This was the only reason why is then, and maybe this doesn't matter and I'm overthinking this, then Friday I would have that cardio session and then the
Then
same one Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't see a problem with that.
You don't think there's any issue to doing those back to back like that? Like you said, Jordan, you said it's not really going to beat me up. I don't feel like it really does. So
Yeah. I'd say if you were running, maybe if you were doing two back-to-back zone 3, zone 4 steady state runs, that might be more of a structural impact than doing it on a bike. I don't know. I think you'll be fine. But like Jordan said, like either decision you make, whether you keep it the same or you switch it and do as I suggested, I think either way, you're going to have some small thing that's maybe not perfect. And both of them, you're going to be fine. You're going to survive. It's just a matter of which of the non-perfect things you want to pursue, right?
yeah, and just seeing how I recover and things like that too, and how that's impacting it. I decided to go back to 4 days. I was doing 3, but man, I just come back to I still want to continue to build muscle. I had that period of time where it's like maybe it's not as important, but it still is like kind of my bread and butter and what I really want to focus on. And plus, I feel like when you're pursuing two things, I feel like you can really guys your training, right? I know like from a hypertrophy sense, it's like we don't necessarily need to periodize anything from that, but it's if you do have these two different goals, it probably is a thing where you could, hey, you're going to spend a little bit more time on cardio for a little while, dial back the volume on hypertrophy, and then flip flop. And I feel like a lot of people forget that they can do that. It doesn't have to be all or nothing all the time. So
I was talking about that with my seasonal approach for many years, where warm months I was focusing on cardio, and then cooler months I'd focus more on hypertrophy.
do you guys see yourself ever increasing your volume from a hypertrophy standpoint at this point in time, or do you feel like you feel pretty good about where it's at right now? And obviously, I know things can change. It's hard to forecast what it's going to look like and
Jordan,
stuff
what
like
do you
that.
think?
But
I'm curious.
Current status is I can't personally, I currently derive no motivation to be any more strong or muscular than I am right now. It is not for me personally at this moment. I don't care at all about doing that at all. And however, so I'm not a therapy session. This isn't Jordan's therapy, but like that I can't get motivated. I can't do a thing with the specific goal of getting larger in an area of my body anymore. There's no reason for it other than to look a certain way. And at this moment, I just don't care. However, the goal is to keep doing this shit forever. I think in a perfect world, I would find the absolute minimum effective dose to stay exactly where I'm at with everything and turn all of the dials to that, see what time I have left over, spend that time on some sort of adaptation I don't have that helps me live longer and feel better. But can I stay motivated without being on some sort of trajectory, right? Can I go in and punch the clock, right? Punch in, punch out, stay where I'm at always. Can somebody keep exercising without making anything better? Right? Can somebody stay with their teeth sunk into stuff, knowing they're just doing enough to stay where they're at? And I think the answer is maybe, and in some things at some times. So if you bet me, is there a point in my life where I do a bulk and I lift primarily for the goal of getting larger? I bet you I do. Because mostly I don't not attacking anyone's goals, but I don't care about looking better. My point is to keep doing this. And you mentioned before we hopped on air of like things like myo reps and drop sets, and these kind of fall in the same category of tools you'd use to make training fun enough to keep doing it. The marginal difference in stimuli is just like eye-rollingly boring for me. I think that doing them's not boring. That's the point. Doing these sorts of things, changing your training, putting in some intensity techniques, putting in new exercise, it's to for me, for others, it could be for other goals, but for me, it would be to just keep it fun enough to keep doing. So I wonder if I keep running and keep lifting as much as I am right now, I will plateau on both of them, right? If I just run 3 or 4 hours a week, eventually I'll get as good as I'm going to get. If I lift 90 minutes a week right now, I'll get as jacked as I'm going to get. Spoiler, I'm there. And when everything plateaus, will things become less fun? Is my lifting holding on by the thread that my running is improving and that's making the net of my exercise routine enjoyable? When everything plateaus, can I keep doing it? Or will I then seek out a new thing to get better at? I'll be like, oh, I'm going to train mobility, or I'm going to train plyos, or I'm going to train whatever. I'm going to do some sort of other modality or exercise routine or something to get better at. Do we need the independent variable of improving to stay motivated to keep doing it? Or can we truly come to terms with minimum effective dose for health because it's good for me and it's going to help me it's going to potentiate greater fun and enjoyment and longevity in my life? So I'm currently have no interest in increasing volume. I have no interest in being any larger. To me, I just think there's literally no point for me to do that. There's not even to connect with those who have that goal. Like I've had that goal for decades, so I'm very familiar with being in that mindset and what it takes to do that and the type of training. But if you ask me straight up, if I had to bet, I bet you I get to a point where I'm like, hey, I'm going to turn cardio down to twice a week, training up to 4 or 5 times a week. Let's do a surplus for fun as a tool to stay engaged this year at a certain point in my life. Totally. I think I will. Sorry for that long-winded answer, but it's been on my mind.
no, it's good. I like it. And for me, yeah, too, it's like I also want to just figure out what is the most, and again, I think it depends on where you're at in life and your recovery and what that looks like and everything. But it's like also an experiment. Okay, how much can I push each one in? And like you said, at some point you're going to come into that point where you do plateau and you have to decide and figure out. So it's also from that standpoint too, experimenting with that. How much can I push the hypertrophy side too?
Yeah, I know you have to go in like a few minutes, right, Jeff? So I'll be quick.
Take your time.
Okay. I agree with Jordan. I think like I could absolutely see myself doing a bro split again at some point in the not so distant future, simply because I haven't done a bro split in 4 years. And I used to love training that way. It's super fun to go in and hammer 8 to 12 sets of a single muscle group, be done in
Imagine how
45 minutes.
sore you'd be. I haven't been so like how sore you'd be the first like chest day.
Yeah,
My
yeah.
chest would be fucking
I
screaming if I
know.
did 8 sets of chest.
I know.
Done more than
Well,
one set of chest in a workout in 6 to 12 months. Like
It's
yeah.
hilarious.
that's my pecs would fall off.
I still get sore from my current volume. I train with 4 to 6 sets per muscle group per week, and I still get sore for 2 days or so after my sessions in pretty much any muscle group that usually would get sore. I also think that I don't know that there's more stimulus to be had. Like you frame the question as if I'm going to need to do more volume if I want to improve my physique and build muscle. I think it's less about doing more volume than it is about like just optimizing my nutrition, my recovery, and possibly doing like a little bit less cardio. I think like I'm maximizing stimulus right now at 4 to 6 sets. If I were to do more than 4 to 6 sets per muscle group, I would have to work less hard. So instead of taking 4 to 6 sets to failure, I would do 2 to 4 RIR. Sure, I can do 15 or 20 sets at 2 to 4 RIR, but are we going to assume that because that's more volume that I'm now getting more stimulus to target muscles? Maybe, but I don't know that's a for sure cemented argument that 15 sets at 3 RIR is more stimulus than 6 sets at failure. So I guess I question slight framing of the question in general, but I do think that using it as a tool to have fun and just change training up sounds like the most likely reason that I would do.
So, and I think we've had this conversation before. So you said you're doing 4 to 6 sets, maximizing stimulus. You feel like, again, like you said, I agree. I think like recovery ends up being a bottleneck, nutrition, probably depending on where that's at for you. But let's say those things were maximized. Do you feel like if you added 7 to 8 sets and went up, you don't think there would be more of a stimulus there? Again, keeping your intensity, everything the same.
I don't think I could physically do 12 to 15 sets to failure for a muscle group. I think my ability to go there and connect with my muscle has just increased so much from 10 years ago when I used to train with more volumes like that, that I actually physically don't think that I could do that. I think it would probably cap at something like 8, maybe 10 sets, depending on the muscle group per week. And I don't think I could really go much higher than that with sets to failure. So yeah, I could do more volume, but the sets would be sub failure. And maybe there is benefit there as far as that is more volume, so to speak. It's probably more volume load. It definitely is more volume load. So maybe there is something there, but I'm not fully convinced of it.
So again, like it's 7 to 8 sets per week versus
Four
all
to
the,
six or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
and again, maybe it is, like you said, a recovery thing and you'd have to take out a day of cardio or something like that to make up
So
for you.
TRT hits, man. When the TRT hits,
And that too.
we're gonna be
Yeah.
at, you're gonna recovery's gonna be up, man. We're gonna get you
Yeah.
up over 10. No,
Yeah.
Jordan, what do you think of that? Do you think, do you have any kind of insight on that or anything or anything?
I'm going to say it this way, but it's going to sound like almost accusatory. But I think Bryan can insulate that argument based on saying his training quality is so high, and Bryan's a 43-year-old stallion, but he's also not 23, and recovery does go down a little bit. So maybe I'm so good. I know you're not saying it this way. You are saying this. I'm so good at training, which is I'm just very, and my recovery ceiling comes down. So stimulus per set has gone up, and recovery sets I can do and recover from comes down. That doesn't sound crazy to me. I had a similar thought of Jeff that like I think if your life depended on it, if you did a pro bodybuilding show, you'd find that you could modify your life in some way to get more stimulus from more sets. But like that, none of that is a should argument. That's just I bet that's the case. I even had we don't have time for this next discussion on, but I think that interestingly, like our willingness to spend time on training also caps out. If I told you, Bryan, that you could maximize hypertrophy at 8 hours a week, like it just wouldn't matter. You're just like, all right, we just would not do that. I'm not doing that. So that is ultimately yeah, we can have good theoretical discussions of volume and stuff. But I'm not training. I'm not lifting weights 8 hours a week. I think once you decide that you're not going to maximize, you're not going to pursue absolutely maximizing hypertrophy. Once you've decided you're not going to do that, which is what every pro bodybuilder has decided, more or less, you are deciding then I'm not maximizing. So I am going to pick my own individualized spot on my diminishing return curve. And everybody gets to pick where they feel like being on that curve. If you're not maximizing, then all of us are together on this curve somewhere else where we feel the return is worth the investment. And I think that's like, there are some people out there who are critiquing people who train with 2 working sets, saying that I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have opened that can. Saying that I don't want to do that. There's a critique out there that's saying training with X volume doesn't maximize hypertrophy. And I don't think anybody training with that volume is saying that it would maximize hypertrophy. I think that person is saying this is where I prefer to be on that diminishing return curve.
Yeah.
And I think it's just people talking past each other. That's all.
Yeah. I think it would be important also to just mention that there is individual variances in response to volume. And I'm not saying that I am Jeff Alberts, but Jeff Alberts is one of the best natural bodybuilders ever. And he has found that the sweet spot for him throughout his training career, really, but now he's in his 50s, whatever, recovery down, stimulus up type thing. But throughout his whole training career, he's found that he responded best to lower volume training protocols. I just think you can't ignore those types of situations as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then two, it's a whole topic. And again, this is probably a can of worms of, okay, if you were to just, again, from a theoretical standpoint, add in those 2 sets and it was more, it's like, what is the actual difference of that? in the short term and the long term. And you know what I'm saying? And I know we've had this conversation before about, is it better to just, do you need to maximize gains now? Or is it, hey, if you keep at it for longer periods of time, are you going to get to the kind of same place? I know that's a topic that we're always talking about there. Cool. Final question. I think this should be fairly quick. From a chest perspective, the best way to hit the short position and like to do a short exercise from the chest is the press around, right? Am I right on that? Or is there other ways to
think so.
be able to do that?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Yeah.
On paper, or if somebody was like, hey, I really want to work the short position, what exercise would I give them?
Yeah, if it is, hey, okay, you're doing like a fly press or some sort of fly, you're doing that incline, you're doing sternal, and then you're doing some sort of decline. So, okay, you've maximized that. You want to throw in a little bit more chest to maximize that. Would you add in some sort of press around for the short position there at that point?
I love CAS, and I've gone to 9 different N1 lectures. I will never do a press around. I have never connected with it. I can't get a stimulus from it. I'd, if possible, set up a bilateral fly with a short resistance profile in a certain way. I'd much prefer to do that. I'd even sacrifice the resistance profile a little bit and say, hey, even if this, as long as this isn't set up so that the length of position has peak tension, as long as it's set up somewhere not there, I would take that any day of the week from just to, yeah, it can go deeper than this, but it doesn't need to go deeper than I don't feel I get a good stimulus with that, even after tons and tons of practice with it. So that would be my preferred way is rigging up. If you really wanted only short tension, like you could rig up a banded band only. I don't know if that's anybody's goal. They just want to get a net short stimulus. And I think you could do that with a cable, with a fly. You could even do that with a pec deck. I know that it's a smooth resistance profile. I probably wouldn't perform the press around, but on paper, the best exercise for the short position, most likely, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I also don't do press arounds. I also screwed around with them for a really long time. And I wouldn't say that it's because I can't connect with them or can't get a good stimulus from them, but I don't think the stimulus is good enough to warrant doing it as a unilateral movement. And so you haven't seen me doing it for a number of years either. I just think that a standard cable, a sternal or clavicular, whatever cable fly is just so effective. There's insane tension throughout the whole thing. And the strength curve of your chest is such that it's going to get weaker as you adduct across the middle. So even if that cable is set up slightly lengthened, biased with your forearm in relation to the cable line, you're still going to be limited by the short position due to the strength curve of the chest. You won't find me doing that either.
I will say the one exercise, being overly transparent, that the only exercise I do for my chest currently is a completely lengthened, overloaded cable fly. So even though strength curve, I agree with you. If you set it up 90 degrees, you will find that the short position, the cable meets your arm. And so it's a very welcomed rest every rep. But I know what you mean. Yes, totally.
Sweet. All right, guys. Always fun chatting with you and catching up on your guys' training and just obviously other random topics that come up. Anywhere where you guys want to lead the audience to or anything coming out on your end, either side?
Instagram's good. Check out my podcast, Eat, Train, Prosper. We're going to focus a little more on the prosper side of Eat, Train, Prosper this next year.
Nice.
So I think that should be fun.
Did you get the invite to be on the pod, Jeff? Or
No,
get lost in the mail? Mine
I guess so.
I prosper. There it is. I like prospering. So
yeah, we can all prosper together.
We can prosper together. Yeah.
I think Gmail's been acting a little weird. That's probably what it was.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I sent it like 6 times. I don't really know what's happening.
Yeah, shit. We'll figure it out. We'll get it figured out. I actually just had Aaron on the pod. He's fun to chat with. So, and also just catching up on his TRT, his PED journey as well, too.
Yeah.
Cool, boys. All right. Good chatting with you. We'll obviously do this again here soon, probably in the winter time and stuff like that. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Sounds good.
You guys.